Hello everybody and welcome to another Dyad Reacts. So there's a bit of drama, I guess, and I tried to keep silent about this topic too. I don't know if it's the same for you. So Filoni came out with the Mandalorian season 2 finale making of gallery episode, and he says something that a lot of people are really riled up about. So let's play it really quickly and show everybody what we're talking about, and that's this right here from gallery.
It would be very easy to just make him so over the top skilled, but I was like, you know, what's interesting is he's had training, but I don't know who's been teaching him sword fight training lately. So he had to have a style that was better than what we saw in Jedi, but fundamentally still of the same tree of sword fighting technique. And his technique and Ahsoka's technique should be very different. And technically, she's had vastly more training than he ever has. She's actually his senior, which is, I think, difficult for people to remember because of when these characters were created, right?
So that's where it ends, at least relevancy-wise. I don't know about you, Choco. I tried to keep quiet because I didn't think there's going to be a problem with that.
I know, like, it's so obvious. It's so like.
There's a lot of articles out there pointing to in the Filoni verse, Ahsoka is stronger than Luke, and then it's sparked a lot of this. Yeah, and there's a lot of versus style analysis videos coming out of the woodwork about whether or not Ahsoka would beat Luke. We have a video of Theory talking about how Luke would dust her, and so this video is not about what Theory said or what anyone else said. We're just kind of like, why is this a thing? Like, why are people taking this way out of context when objectively it's true? For the first time in Star Wars, we're talking about objectively right here. He literally says she's had more training than Luke, and her sword fighting style would be vastly different from Luke. And objectively, that is correct. She was trained under Yoda, Plo Koon. Anakin Skywalker was her primary master. She was trained under a lot of masters and learned Jarkai. I don't know who taught her Jarkai, but she's had classical training.
I mean, Yoda was there and forced her to go into Jarkai in order for her to learn it. But yeah, it's interesting, and of course, this is not to put anyone else down, any other creators or anything like that. But I tried to stay out of it because I didn't think this was a story. Like, it's obvious that
I covered it in my my making over behind the scenes coverage. I was like, oh, this is an interesting point. Like, they actually paid attention to this, like his sword fighting style, because it's true. We don't know who is at this point in the time is training him.
No. The only people we know is prior to that, which was Sergeant Creel and oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. He was trapped on the planet with the gentleman that was treating. He was like eyeing the guy's daughter, and then Creel came down and fought with that guy. It happened towards the end of the Star Wars 2017 run, I believe.
Was it 20? Was it?
No, it was 2015.
Yeah,
2015.
That was a while.
It was towards the 12 the tail end of that, but. Yeah, it's not even close, but it's a fascinating window into our community that I see people up in arms over the possibility of Ahsoka beating Luke, which is not what he said.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say Ahsoka would beat Luke. He didn't say Ahsoka was more powerful than Luke. He said Ahsoka had more training than Luke, which is objectively correct. All the other things are subjective and possible, some are even likely. But that's just not what was said.
Yeah. It's not a statement on power. It's just literally what the case is, right? She trained classically under old Jedi masters from the prequels for a long time.
But it inherently, I can't help but think of Rey. of anyone that's ever used the she doesn't have enough training argument.
Yeah.
Where do those people go? I don't. It's so weird, and I'm not trying to call anyone names. I just want people to think objectively. Like, it's okay to like things or to feel things or to feel very strongly. I just think Luke would win, but like, I think it's important for us to take a step back and think, why do I feel this way? Why do I think this? What information do I have on hand that makes me believe this? So I'll ask you, what? Let's say that Luke would dominate Ahsoka in this scenario. What feats from Luke versus what feats from Ahsoka support that?
The only feat that supports that is that he defeated Darth Vader. But we don't know, we don't know the factors surrounding that defeat. If he was being treated with kid gloves, if it really was just a dip into the dark side and Vader couldn't handle it, and that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on in this video really quickly is just the entire versus community and power scaling and everything. Like, it always comes down to a very static and arbitrary ranking of power where things start to get a little weird with how you feel about a certain character. Ahsoka does have more training than Luke. Now, did he say he would beat her, or she would beat him, or she's stronger? No. But we also don't have evidence that she isn't either. She might be stronger than Luke too, but we do know that Luke, takes after his father, so he's definitely has more power. So, but the point is, like, who would beat who is a very tricky kind of road to go down. And I do want to cite Hunter x Hunter. And I'm going to bring out this clip here for explaining how fights are actually won. So this is Biscuit explaining to Killua, who has a fear of fighting stronger enemies. And you'll get the gist of it.
戦闘力ってのは環境、体調などで上下するもの。例えば C が絶好調なら不調時の D に高確率で勝てるだろう。つまり条件を整えれば A、B、C の誰もが D に勝てる潜在力を持っているわけだわさ。それに対しあんたの場合、敵のマックスを測ろうとする。そして常に最悪の場合を想定して戦う。
And that's all I really wanted to show on that kind of explanation. Like, according to the circumstances, a person can win over another person that's stronger. Like, Ahsoka could theoretically win against Luke. I mean, she was 3 inches away from decapitating Vader in Rebels. So whether she can beat him or not is kind of irrelevant and shouldn't really send you into a tiz. I feel like what Filoni said was rather tame and objectively true.
Yeah. I mean, Filoni created the character, so he invents the power scaling.
Yes.
For one thing.
But then we have like the objective, like objectively, she came before him and has had years.
Yeah.
So,
but so two the things that pop in my mind is how important is training. That's point one. Point two, how important is experience? Because she's his senior in both. And if you believe Luke beats her, and I'm not saying he does, I'm not saying he doesn't. I don't care personally, but
I would argue the most important thing is circumstance.
Exactly. And so when I watch Ahsoka fight Vader and she takes off a portion of her mask, I don't think it's because she was so much better than anyone else who's ever fought Vader. I look at it as a narrative tool so that we can see her reaction to her mentor being unmasked.
Yep.
That's the purpose of it. It's not to show us that she got that close. It's to show us she's finding out that something that she feared is true. This person who she blamed for her master's death is her master, and he no longer cares about her, and the devastating effects of that. Right? It's a story beat, and that's one of the things I love about Star Wars, is because they're tapping into the Force. Right? This isn't Marvel. This isn't DC. This isn't a superpower that person has. It's an external force that they're tapping into. I mean, I know it's still Marvel, but it's more similar to the Eternals than it is to anything else. Because the Eternals are tapping into the power cosmic, right? They all have the same propensity towards power, the same abilities, same they're able to tap into the same abilities. Some of them are better at it, or worse at it, or have more experience or training. And it's, I just don't see how this sparked so much stuff in the community. I made a small video on it because I thought this was just a blip. I didn't think anyone would care, but they have.
I didn't even think it was going to create a blip at all. I just thought it was interesting that they paid attention to that detail. But apparently some people care a lot about Luke. I care a lot about Luke. He's my favorite character. But like, to kind of like assign to him an arbitrary kind of shield, wouldn't that be kind of Mary Sue-ish?
And that's where I fall back to. It's like it's okay to think things, okay to feel things, but ultimately we should stop and take, like, why do I think this? Why do I feel this? What evidence do I have towards what I believe? If you don't have evidence towards it, but you believe it anyways, that's bias. And people in our community throw around the word bias, as if it's an insult. Oh, you're so biased. You're so. Bias is not a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's something a lot of us carry.
Yes.
And if you don't ask yourself the relevant questions, you'll never find out, and you'll just be biased.
Yep. And a lot of people out there are also saying that they are blinded by their own biases whilst being biased themselves, like saying Luke is the son of the chosen one. She was trained by the chosen one, but the main point of this video is to kind of be like, let's calm down here, because Filoni is not announcing winners or losers here. He's simply saying, narratively speaking, Luke should fight a certain way because we don't know who's training him, and that it should differ from Ahsoka's because she's had more training, and he doesn't have as much. So they're not going to fight the same, and their sword styles are going to be different. That is a perfectly reasonable sentence to say when explaining the difference in two people's fighting styles.
And that's also where bias comes in. If you hear a sentence and you're unable to parse that single sentence for what it is, for the content that was provided, because you can ascribe other meaning to it. And if you get upset over that meaning, it may not be what they said. It may be what you heard, and what you heard may be different than what they said. I just think in general, all of us could benefit from paying more attention to what we think and why we think it. That's all. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yep.
I love Luke, and Luke is an amazing character. I do fully believe him to be more powerful in the Force. Have more, I guess, horsepower, if you would.
I guess he wouldn't be able to take those corners as sharply as Ahsoka would, though.
Have you seen how agile she is? Shoot.
She's a circuit. She's definitely a circuit car, and he's like the drag racer. I believe.
And that's what I believe as well. However, if you ask me what canon feats do I have to back that up, I can't provide them to you. Like I have him fighting the Knights of Ren, but I mean that's
Dark Troopers.
That's a ways away. Dark Troopers, which are droids. I mean, honestly, they're droids that are susceptible to lightsabers. I would argue Ahsoka would dispatch them a lot faster, to be quite honest, than what we saw. I mean,
if we're going off of just the existence of feats, I kind of feel like Ahsoka would mollywop Luke 10 times over. But again, this isn't about
feats. Don't tell the whole story.
Exactly.
It's not about who wins or loses. Here's where I stand on the whole thing. Can we stop focusing on how much training someone has and start focusing on what they are being taught and how well they applied those lessons? That's the only thing that matters when it comes to training. Not how long you've spent doing it. It's what you're being taught and how well you apply it. Like,
so a good if a little bit ridiculous analog for this would be if you know somebody that spent 12 years in high school versus someone who spent 4.
Oh, they're way smarter than you. They spend more time. Right? It's the time that matters, right?
I mean, subjectively, it could mean that they could theoretically be smarter than you in the long term, whether or not you chose to pursue higher educations afterwards. But this analogy is just to paint that they were in high school, they were held back and they spent a lot of time there, but that doesn't mean that
or maybe they do know more about high school.
That's true. All right, well, guys, just whenever you come to these like little, these articles stating what Filoni says, or if usually when people are outraged, have the courage to not be outraged. Have the courage to kind of research, see what everyone's what all the fuss is about, and see if it is worth making a fuss over it. In terms of this, Filoni said Ahsoka had more training, and so her fighting style would be different from Luke's, and there's nothing wrong with that statement. So, I think that's my take for this entire thing. Do you have any final thoughts before we close?
Yeah, final thoughts is back up your statement. If you think something, ask yourself why. If you can't explain it, maybe it's not correct, and it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to have to update your own mental dictionary or encyclopedia or what have you. That's how you are not wrong in the future. Like, if don't put good money after bad. Just realize that new information is new information. If it conflicts with old information, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you should probably think and figure out which is right. That's all.
Absolutely. But that's the end. On to the next one.
For light and for life.
We are all the Republic.
And may the Force be with you always.